I'm Mike Keenan, your host for the TAL Global Perspective. Our topic today is workplace violence and some interesting legislation that's been passed in California that's going to have a big impact on employers. Our speaker is Oscar Villanueva, who is the COO of TAL Global. Welcome, Oscar.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you inviting me again to your program.
It's great having you. Well, let's get started. So in California, they passed a Senate bill 553 that is going to require employers to do more when it comes to workplace violence. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, SB 553 is very new legislation that was passed in California, and it has to do with workplace violence prevention. And essentially, it has three parts. One is that every company, almost every business, needs to implement a workplace violence prevention plan. They must log all incidents of workplace violence, and they must also provide related training annually. These are the top main parts of the legislation. There's a couple of things that are in addition to this, but those are the main things that this new legislation has implemented now that they passed it.
So can you go into a little more detail about the requirements of this legislation?
Sure. So the one thing I failed to mention is that it's effective July 1st, 2024. So there's time for businesses, employers to comply with this and be prepared for this. That's why we are doing this discussion today, to make sure that everybody knows about it and gets ready to work on this and be compliant. So some of the main requirements of this new legislation include creating a prevention plan that has to be in writing, and it must be accessible to employees. So employees must have the ability to take a look at it and to know where it is and to be able to review it. It should also have names and job titles of the people responsible for implementing the plan, procedures to obtain the active involvement of employees and authorized employee representatives, meaning that is not created in a vacuum by management, but it's also requiring that employees and their representatives be involved in putting together the plan. It also includes things like how the plan will be implemented, especially if you have to collaborate with other employees. For example, if you have a contractor, or if you have someone else that works in your office regularly, or your business regularly, has to be coordinated with other companies if necessary. There's also a requirement to have procedures to manage and respond to incidents, and to prohibit retaliation when an employee brings a complaint of workplace violence, or comes to provide intelligence that workplace violence is happening. Additional requirements also include ways to comply. It must include procedures to ensure compliance. It should have a communication plan to effectively communicate with employees. Again, how response is going to take place, protocols and procedures. And then training, which is a very important part of this new requirement. It needs to be provided to all employees when the plan is first implemented, then annually, and then there needs to be a maintenance of those records for training for a minimum of 1 year. There's a few more things like correcting hazards, what the post-incident response and investigation is going to look like and how that's going to take place, a review and revision of the plan as appropriate, and then having an incident log, meaning logging every workplace violence incident to keep track of that. And then there are some records that are going to be required to be maintained for a minimum of 5 years, and these are hazards identified, violence incident logs, and what investigations took place. That's the essential number of requirements that come with this legislation. It's a little bit more involved in this, but this is the main things that everyone should be aware of.
Wow, that's quite comprehensive. I read through it myself. There's a lot of expectations going to be placed on companies to be in compliance with this. What steps do you recommend an organization take to be ready when it goes into effect in July of 2024?
Well, there's a few common sense things that should be done. The first is if the organization already has a workplace violence program, then review that program for gaps. Any gaps in the effectiveness of it and in the compliance of that program with new requirements that this new legislation is bringing on board. Then, if you do find any gaps in that program or the procedures and policies that you currently have, then revise that to comply with a new law. If you don't have a program, if a company does not have a program, then you should consider creating a workplace violence plan as part of a larger workplace violence program, which is sort of all-encompassing, including policies, procedures, the workplace violence plan that is now a requirement. And then I think every organization should plan for workplace violence training, workplace violence awareness training, and it should be done for all employees and then for managers, supervisors, and leadership separately. And then finally, my recommendation is that if internally your organization doesn't have that sort of expertise, that type of expertise, then it should look for external support in order to accomplish this necessary actions.
Well, thank you, Oscar. That was quite informative. And I know this legislation is specific to California, but the points that you made are applicable really to every company, and they should be looking to develop their own plans or enhance their current plans. So thank you again for that. If you'd like to learn more about our services and our experts, please visit us at talglobal.com and stay alert and stay safe. Thank you.